morning. Welcome to the session on women's journey in wound care. My name is Afsaneh Alabi, and I'm a dermatologist at Mayo Clinic, Rochester, Minnesota. It's a great pleasure to be here. Women have always been involved in wound care, but they started from being volunteers in wartime. Most of the duty of women at that time was more to setting dietary plan for the wounded soldiers, changing wounded dressings, clothing, reading, writing letters, and it was by 1865 that it was shown the importance of women's role in their professional nursing and medicine in general, and their ability to perform a high-level work in a male-dominated field of healthcare. It was around that time that Florence Nightingale came to prominence while serving as a manager and trainer of nurses during war, and she gave nursing a favorable reputation and became the lady with the lamp. And shortly thereafter, Marie Curie, another woman, led by the way in physics and chemistry. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, the first person and the only woman to win the Nobel Prize twice. And sadly, she was the victim of her own research because we did not have rules and regulation at that time, passing away with aplastic anemia due to exposure to radioactive material. We have a long way, and today I'm thrilled to introduce you a few women who made a difference in the science, in the clinics, some in leadership, some in their dedication to work to patient care, and some in science. Each one of you there, I'm sure, have the ability to tell your stories here and have stories and would be the same. We just selected a couple of women who made a difference in wound care. And here our panel is Dr. Helen Lifter, Dr. Karen Oesi, Dr. Mariana Tomic-Kanik, and I go first introduce all panelists and then you hear their story. Dr. Lifter is an associate professor of medicine at the Department of Internal Medicine at Addis Ababa University. She is a consultant internist and endocrinologist in her hospital. She led the first food care service in Ethiopia at the Diabetes Center, and she will tell you about her story. Dr. Karen Oesi is a professor of skin integrity and director of Institute of Skin Integrity and Infection Prevention at the University in the UK. She has over 30 years experience in both clinical practice and academia, and she is elected chair of the International Wound Infection Institute. And you have here Dr. Mariana Tomic-Kanik. Mariana is a vice chair of research and professor of dermatology at the University of Miami, Department of Dermatology. She has done amazing work in skin biology and numerous publications that has changed this field. She has been founded for more than 20 years by NIH, and she worked closely with the institute. Our next panelist is Hiski Smart. All of you have met the his key during this meeting and her dedication and commitment to patient care and also to teamwork. Hiski is a nurse based in Bahrain and secretary of WHO and upcoming president of IIWCG. And Dr. Hiromi Sanada from Japan. Dr. Sanada is a professor of nursing and former president of Society of Nursing Science and Engineering. Dr. Laura Edsberg is from United States. Dr. Edsberg is a professor of natural science and director of Natural and Health Science Research Center in New York. She is the past president of NPIAP, and she has done amazing research in the area of pressure also. And last but not the least is my dear friend, Gulnaz Tariq. She is the first president of World Union of Wound Healing, the first female president of World Union of Wound Healing Society, and the first nurse who took this role and also ran the conference in this difficult time. Gulnaz is a nurse with more than 30 years experience. She changed the paradigm of wound care education in Middle East and Africa, MENA region, and she is the founder of IIWCG. Please help me to welcome the panels and join me to applaud their panels. I would like to ask Dr. Lifter to tell us about your story, Dr. Lifter. Thanks a lot.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Afsana, for the kind introduction. I'm excited today to share my story, which is the beginning of my journey. And I feel very privileged to be joining this amazing women panel to tell our stories in healthcare, specifically in the wound care. So my journey started in 2013 while I was doing my endocrinology fellowship training in Ethiopia. And during our endocrinology fellowship training, I had the opportunity to see firsthand that diabetes foot complications were the leading cause of admission to our hospital with high rates of amputations and mortality. And our patients at the clinic, we see more than 1,000 patients in a month, and only less than 5% of them receive foot exam. So I met Dr. Julia Lowe from the University of Toronto, who came to our hospital to do the fellowship training, and she shared her story of what they did in Guyana to reduce amputation of diabetic patients through education. And she said if we were interested, she can arrange a training for us to do something about it. Then we said, okay, so me and my colleague, Dr. Abdulrazak, volunteered to take the IIWCC course, which started in South Africa, and then we completed here in Abu Dhabi. And this course was the turning point for me. I met the people who changed everything. So Gary, Julia, Hiski, Gulnaz, and all the IIWCC have been at the center of support, encouragement, and mentors through this journey. To date, we were able to train more than 7 endocrinologists, more than 8 nurses to emergency physicians. We set up a foot clinic at the Diabetes Center at the Black Lion Hospital, and we have a foot clinic where we can do prevention care for our diabetic patients. But But it was not only for me setting up the clinic and running it. For me, it also was an opportunity that I could do more than what was in my list of job descriptions. We can go beyond our expectations to do more for our patients, for our students, and for our healthcare professionals. So through this experience, I also became the academic director at the College of Health Sciences, which was taking up more leadership for me. I have seen my nurses who were took the IWCC course, who were encouraged to do a master's, and I am happy to share with you that 4 of them completed a master's at the Addis Ababa University after the IWCC course. So this journey for me was a happy journey, which brought many changes, some of them expected, some of them unexpected outcomes of the joining the IWCC family. So thank you very much.
Thank you. COVID changed the life of all of us, and some of our panelists are virtually present. Then the next speaker would be Dr. Karen Moesi, and we listen to her talk.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. I'm Karen Moesi. I'm Professor of Skin Integrity at the University of Huddersfield in the United Kingdom. And today I'm going to be doing an overview of really my journey in wound care, but I've decided to entitle it Making a Difference, Improving Patient Outcomes. So I have no conflicts to declare, and hopefully by the end of this session you'll understand the changing role of nursing. Has got a bit of a UK focus on it, but I do feel that's transferable globally, and be aware of a personal journey which is mine throughout the wound care world. So just briefly looking at the nursing history, the history of nursing, sorry. Historically, nurses have been female, as we know. We're seeing more and more males coming into the profession, which is excellent, but in the past it's been very much seen as the handmaiden of the doctor, and nurses have been carrying out orders from the doctors. In the 1800s, nursing represented the caring and nurturing role of women in the family, society and church. So it very much was all-encompassing at that point, but wasn't particularly seen as an academic career. Florence Nightingale, who we all know, she highlighted the environment of healthcare, but she also highlighted the important role that nurses play from a social, an economic, a physical and the mental health well-being of all our patients. And the International Council for Nurses, many years later, said that nurses must be involved in research, and that really was a pivotal point for everybody, because it was only at that point that the world began to realise that nursing could actually make a real difference, and that the interventions that we developed and delivered were actually based on the best available evidence and research. And through this, we've seen nursing continue to grow and nurture, and we've seen the development of specialist and consultant nurse roles as well. However, throughout this transition, I think sometimes we've seen somewhat of an imposter syndrome, and from a very personal way, I've often felt as an imposter that I'm a nurse. How can people actually listen to what I'm saying, and is my research important? Well, yes, it is important, and never more so when we look at an image such as this, and we think, well, where is the nurse here? And actually, where is the patient here as well? You can see that these are middle-class medical staff looking at the patient, and literally looking at the patient, not listening to the patient, not paying any attention to who is the person in the bed, but rather using that person as a teaching tool. And I particularly like the stethoscopes here, which are all joined together, and the poor patient is looking stunned. But where's the nurse there? Be it a male nurse or a female nurse, they should be there standing up for the rights of the patient. And this is very much why I came into nursing, to be caring and to also help those patients. And we've seen this changing role of women within nursing as well, from Florence Nightingale, then of course here as the handmaiden to the doctor. And then generally we've seen that role change, and much of it's changed from nurses being seen as the handmaiden to nurses being seen as a real asset to the healthcare team. And a lot of this has gone through the uniforms as well. So we've seen nurses change from that very stark uniform to being very much theatre scrubs or just general civvies. And nursing within wound care has been massive. It is very much a nurse-led speciality, especially in the UK. And nurses here have done much research that's helped improve outcomes for patients. And it was when I was first as a staff nurse on an orthopaedic ward, I looked at our patients and thought, why do all these patients have what we call bed sores then, and infected wounds? And it was out of that interest of trying to work out, well, these patients really shouldn't be getting pressure ulcers or pressure injuries. There must be something we can do. But when we looked at management of wounds as well, we saw a range of different things being taken as being good things to use for the wounds, such as USOL, which was the Edinburgh University solution of lime. Well, who would want to put lime into a wound these days? We also have Mercurochrome, and we used to put this onto patients' bed sores or pressure ulcers, and it used to sting. We also use egg white and oxygen to try and manage pressure ulcers. And strangely, these did work, but that was probably because we actually had to move the patient off the bottom and relieve the pressure, rather than the fact we were going in the kitchen and getting eggs and putting oxygen there. And of course, there's also hydrogen peroxide flavouring that we use a lot. But as a newly registered nurse, I never believed that I would eventually become a professor. And here is a picture of my good self. And there I am in the middle, so I've changed a little bit. So, since going through the huge journey of being a student nurse, then a staff nurse and a ward sister, I've developed a huge interest of understanding patients' quality of life and understanding research as well. And through this, it's culminated into the development of the Institute for Skin Integrity and Infection Prevention. And this institute is based at the University of Huddersfield, and I'm the director. It is unique because it's a collaboration of a range of different professionals working together in the field of skin and infection prevention with a joint ethos to improve quality of care for patients and their carers. And our aim is this bench to bedside ethos to improve and benefit clinical practice areas and improve quality of life for patients and their carers. It's interdisciplinary and it's international, and we have colleagues from engineering, computing, pharmacy, biology, microbiology, nursing, occupational therapy, podiatry, and all the allied professions to medicine, as well as art, design and architecture. You may be thinking, well, how do these all link together? Well, our engineers are able to see how much damage can be caused to skin because of friction and shear. Pharmacists obviously can see about antimicrobial resistance and which antibiotics should and should not be used. But they also have expertise in how we get things through the skin as well. And of course, healthcare professionals can ensure that all the research that we do actually has a direct impact onto clinical outcomes. So it combines academics, practitioners, international experts, and of course social and service users. And it's important that we have an international aspect to this as well, because everybody in the world has skin. We all have the same issues with skin, and we should always be aiming to strive to improve outcomes for patients. So within the Institute, I'm delighted to be the director and also to have brought together all that learning in clinical practice to be able to share on a global stage. And we do lots of research, we also do evaluations, and importantly, we offer lots of education So master's education, but conferences at least once a year, which are free to attend on a global level. So we hold them virtually, so anybody can come and listen, and we record them all. And that's to share our expertise and to share ideas. We also support our industry colleagues, because without industry we wouldn't have new products, and neither would we have innovations. And it's important that we all get together to share our experiences and expertise. So from being a very young nurse, who hopefully was unrecognisable in that picture, you can see that as you go through your career, you must believe in yourself. And it's important that you develop an interest in a specific area. And obviously I developed an interest in skin and infection prevention. Always keep studying, if it's just reading different journals or books, and immerse yourself in research. Find out why we're doing what we do and question everything that's happening. But learn to be a good communicator and a good listener, and particularly listen to patients and their carers, but also listen to other professionals to find out where the barriers and the boundaries are to improving quality of care, but also to improving yourself. And it's important that we work collaboratively and work interprofessionally. We're not an island. When we're out in clinical practice, it's essential that we work together and understanding each other's interests. And the biggest thing that I can say to you is always believe in yourself, because that's the secret to success. You can be what you want to be. So from a young northern girl, I am now a Professor of Skin Integrity, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. And all we want to do is improve outcomes for patients. Thank you very much for listening.
And our next speaker is Dr. Tommy Kranich. Wonderful, we are waiting to hear from him.
Hello, everyone. Okay, sorry, this is me. Welcome, everyone. I thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to speak here today about my journey. Eventually, I hope that all our journeys for the World Union of 2026 end up in Miami. And I hope to welcome you all as one of the past presidents of Wound Healing Society, and everyone else. We would really love to have you in Miami Beach in 4 years. And so my journey started at University of Belgrade, currently Serbia, used to be Yugoslavia, so my home country expired before my passport. And that in itself is not easy. I was trained as a pediatric nurse, and my internship was in a burn unit before we could offer anything for pediatric patients other than oxygen tents. This was before silver creams or anything we could put topically. And so I was asking so many questions that I was privileged to have mentors who told me, you know what, you should maybe go and do science rather than, because you ask way too many questions that we don't know the answers to. And so I did. Since I did not have enough of credits in education in molecular biology, I went back to college and completed molecular biology at University of Belgrade. And then my journey was over many institutions. I would point out that I spent some time in France, started PhD, and that was another of my aha moments when I realized that I was not well supported in the lab I worked with, and I left. And I ended up going to NYU School of Medicine, where I completed my PhD and stayed on for 16 years. I did everything they told you not to do in your career. You're supposed to change institutions and all of that. I did not. I just stayed because I loved the environment. I loved how well I was supported there. And then I moved to, again, I stayed in New York. I moved to Cornell University. From there, I was really recruited by the powerhouse of wound healing in Miami, where I've been for some time now, almost nearly 15 years.
And so what I wanted to say is my professional, this was kind of my geographical journey, but my professional, you can say I feel very ancient. When you look at current technologies, I was the PCR machine because time polymerase started when I started my PhD and there were no machines, so I had 3 water baths and I had to go through all of them. There are a lot of people, I used floppy disks, I know many of you might not even know what that is. And one of the important, I would say, aha moments, because Dr. Alavi asked us to actually think about what was the precise moment where our careers changed. And that was really the engaging in genomic science and really trying to interrogate the transcriptional profiles of wounds and skin biology. And that was really my first fight, I would say, professionally with my chairman, where I was asking for them to really supply us with technology. And he actually agreed and bought the first Affymetrix gene chip machine for interrogation of genomics. And that was really, so I used the first version that had only 96 genes, 9,600 genes. This was before the human genome was sequenced. And so I am still somewhat Asian because I do not have social media accounts, so you won't find me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. But I am at heart a skin biologist and wound healing biologist, and this is sort of my summary of the training. But my journey really scientifically started when I realized that you can take a piece of skin off the patient, put it in a petri dish, wound it, and that skin would heal. And then that you can actually treat it with different things and figure out why sometimes wounds don't heal. And this was one of my first experiments where I put topical glucocorticoids and they inhibit healing. And I was asked again, why? And so my chairman said, you need to go to the Wound Healing meeting. And that was my first Wound Healing Society meeting where I joined this community and realized how little is known. And so I met there Dennis Rupp and Angela Cristiano, one of my current friends and colleagues, but then they were kind of really famous in regenerative medicine, and they provided me support and inspiration. And then I quickly realized that I really need clinical arm. I need to understand what goes wrong in patients in order for me to study that. And so I started collaborating with Peter Sheehan. He unfortunately passed prematurely. Harold Graham, both of them at NYU. And then I finally, when I moved to Miami, obviously have Dr. Kersner and Heather Leftow, both of which are here at the conference, who are really my friends and colleagues and big supporters in terms of really helping me understand what the needs of the patients are so that we can really provide translational aspects in the lab. And so this is what I pointed out already, which is really the important decision point, was really starting and engaging in omics science, which was really at the time, this was 2003, it was really in its early stages. And so it wasn't without hurdles. This is one of the critiques that I received from NIH for my grant. This was in the year 2002. When I proposed to do this, one of the reviewers said it's simply not possible, right? And so I decided that instead of quitting on this approach, that I should just show that it is. And so these are one of the first experiments of chronic wound expressional profiles where we identified quite a few thousand genes that are dysregulated in patients' biopsies. And not only that, but we could use this approach to really figure out whether wound is debrided or not. So this is a transcriptional profile before and this is after debridement. You could see how biology changes on this global genomic map. And you could also appreciate a patient who is not debrided enough, like this one. For example, patient 3, before and after debridement, the biopsies look quite the same in terms of genetic transcriptional makeup. And that tells us that the biology really did not change, unlike in the other two patients. And so that's basically sort of the essence of how my career changed when I really figured this one out. And so this is one of my slides. I think it's important for us to have a vision. And this is one of my slides that I presented in 2003. And I noted here that my dream is to have a gene chip for each patient as a screen for customized individual therapy. And the best part of it is we are living that dream now. And so, you know, it's really amazing to me how quickly the science of wound care and wound healing advanced in a sense of what is at our capabilities today, when I thought this was my dream in 2003. And so this is 2 decades later and living the dream, and you could appreciate these are the papers that came out of really studying in clinical trials the transcriptional maps and gene networks of how cell-based therapy really changes the wound environment in the patient, in the wound itself, and what does it do? What are the different mechanisms of action, one at the wound edge and one at the wound base? And this I will discuss a little more in the session at the end. And so the last piece, I think I'm going on, I have so far 94 trainees, and I think it's really hugely important for us to support each other and pay it forward. And these are some of the pictures of all wonderful trainees and colleagues that I have. And one thing I want to leave you with is this quote from Eleanor Roosevelt. It says, "A woman is like a tea bag. You never know how strong she is until she gets in the hot water." And I think you heard quite a bit of stories today about us being in hot water of different kinds and really being quite strong tea bags. And so that is all, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Our next speaker is Hiski Smart. Hiski, I want to ask to invite you to the podium to share your story.
Good morning, and thank you very much that I may be standing here today. And even to me today, this is an unbelievable moment. I think the greatest gift of my life is that I am standing here today as a nurse. But I had a pathway that was not easy in the start-up years. But there was a professor in my life who has seen that there is something in this girl, and I'm going to help her to get there. She's the classiest professor I have ever seen, and she was always meticulously dressed in class when I was only attending with a jean, Adidas slops, and a t-shirt. And looking at her, meticulously dressed, Magda Mulder, I have no words to thank you. What makes me absolutely humble is that I never deviated from the path of nursing. I loved clinical practice since the day that I was a third-year student that was thrown into the dressing room and remained there for the duration of my placement in the surgical unit. The more gore and the more dirt, the better my nights were and the happier I was. Never did I know that that would have become my life destiny. I landed up in a small town in the middle of South Africa called Welkom. I became a nurse for Anglo-American in a spinal unit, and I could not understand why I had to do that. But financially, that was the best option, and we had to survive, so I did that. Unbeknownst to me, that would have been one of the key points of my life that would have shaped pressure injury prevention 25 years later for a country. I then decided I need to be more, because Florence Nightingale said, always aim not to be just enough, be more. And I wanted to expand in clinical practice, but I could only do nursing education, nursing administration, or intensive care. And I knew that will not make a difference to the world. So I studied community health nursing. And I landed up with my next mentor, a woman that became a mother. And her name is Dr. Petra Kahl, in a small practice in a city called Potchefstroom. And she looked at me and decided, this girl is going to be a wound care nurse. And I said to her, I hate the smell of burn wounds. The yuck factor of that is unbearable to me. Famous last words. 2-3 years later, that was exactly what I became after I left the spinal ward and became a mother, because I had to manage my time better and I couldn't do the strenuous spinal shift work and manage 2 babies that I had the gift to receive within 2 years. That led to the next dream, because I realized then I need to be a clinical nurse specialist in wound care. There was no training for me in South Africa. And then I remember Henrietta Stockdale, when she was a family nurse, had to go to the UK to study that, bring that back to South Africa to set up the practice of community nursing. So as a master's graduate in community nursing, I packed my bags and I traveled to Wales in the UK. And there, Professor Keith Harding caught me. And he made me a wound clinician. He taught me the theory of biologics of wound healing and everything that goes with that. I went home and I thought, the world is in my hand. Lo and behold, it's only the start. The journey continued, and I have worked in Welkom as an independent practitioner, and my greatest challenge was to find a doctor that would believe that I also have a clinical brain, that I can make decisions that is to the benefit of a patient, and that I do not need to wait for a wrong order and be forced to do a wrong order anymore. I was a staunch resistor there. I found one doctor, or actually one doctor found me, and he was an orthopedic surgeon in the town of Welkom, Dr. Frick Ziervogel. And we changed how we think about wounds in a small city called Welkom. I helped him, he helped me, and that was my first experience as an interprofessional team. It was amazing. His orthopedic wounds were the ones that had the best outcomes in the whole of that city. So that was awesome. But again, it was only the beginning. I knew that we had to do more. So I landed up in Toronto doing a bid for the World Union of Wound Healing Societies together with a colleague, he's on the year, and in 2008, and that was where I have met Professor Sybil, who picked me up and said, there's potential there. I did the International Interprofessional Wound Care course in Toronto, Canada, and afterwards I said to him, you know what, we need to bring this knowledge to the bedside in South Africa, and that's exactly what we did in 2010. And the story from there had just took its own pathway. I landed up in Bahrain as a clinical nurse specialist, and I became the first registered nurse specialist in that country, something that I could not achieve in my own country of South Africa. I have worked with a small team, built up a clinical unit, and having a swimmer for a daughter, I have realized that sometimes you need to change your training ground to a bigger swimming pool with more challenges to you, so that you can become fitter for the future. Lo and behold, I never knew that it would incorporate doing this Congress. But yes, what is the biggest challenge that is still lying ahead? Is that we can get the young that's coming behind us, just as Gulnaz have said, to be willing to take the discomforts of that journey. Because believe me, it is not a comfortable journey. And together with Gulnaz, I think we have such a synergy between the two of us that her weaknesses are my strengths, and my strengths are the ones that we work with. But her strengths are the thing that have made me better as well. So no, I'm not standing here as a person on my own. I'm standing as a person here with a history of people that have believed that a nurse can make a difference in the world, and that the next step that is in front of you is always the right one to take. You need not deviate from your path or from your dream. Thank you very much.
We're going to ask you, and then the doctor explained my recording.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning, everyone, and nice to see all of you today. So I will not take much time because I know the time is limited. So my story I will make it very short, and then we can talk one-to-one if you want to know more. So I'm trained from armed forces, and what was the training? Get up 4 o'clock in the morning, straight away go to pray, discipline, fight challenges. So this is what I was born with, or I was coming from, and that training in the military has really made me strong. I like challenges, and I play well in challenges, and I want to see what I put the plan, I accomplish it at the end, and I accomplish it with quality. Otherwise, I don't need to do that. So having said that, I'm working here since last 35 years, and I feel this is my home because I feel very secure here. And then I've done, my nursing, and I was enrolled in IIWCC class with the help of my friend Afsan Alawi. And then I met with Professor Gary Sibbald. So this is where my story starts, and it's not different than the story of a friend. So what I learned is education can really make a difference, because after that I was a different person, knows what needs to be done in life and what's the purpose of life. So I started doing this, bringing this course to this region, but consistency. So I was not afraid from the challenges, what was coming on my way. Step by step I was accomplishing it. So never be afraid. When you fail one time, second time, try it again. You will reach where you want to reach. So after all these 10 to 13 years, I can tell you that we have trained doctors and nurses in MENA region, Middle East and North Africa and Africa, who speaks the same language for the world. And that is more important. We understand each other, regardless of doctors, nurses, podiatrists, quality gurus, leadership, whoever was enrolled in that course, we all on the same standards. And then from these graduates, the projects which was initiated in the region was a massive breakthrough, because that project's initiation has changed the whole landscape of the MENA region. And my legacy for that is I will continue doing this but I will focus on community which I was not having time to do it. But having a success story, you need to plan, you need to have your mentor, you need to be consistent, and you evaluate the outcomes. If you don't achieve, set it again, but smart goals which can be achievable and you can see the outcome. With that, I welcome all of you and I thank you for being here. Thank you very much.
Our last speaker is Dr. Edsberg, and a short video, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to have some Q&A after this. Dr. Edsberg, please.
Hi, thank you for inviting me to be part of this symposium. So, my background is I started in engineering thinking I was going to be working in orthopedics. I had spent a few years working in the industry and I really enjoyed thinking about bones and implants. And then I watched a lecture on skin and interface pressure, and I got very interested in support surfaces and tissue mechanics, and started to wonder about how forces affect tissue. And from there, really began to wonder about, how the microstructural loading of tissue could prevent or lead to pressure injuries, and then why tissue breaks down in some people and not others, which led me to be interested in proteomics and seeking to identify biomarkers associated with healing and scarring. Probably my biggest challenge was when I was in graduate school. I was in an elevator waiting to go to one of my classes, and I was in the engineering building, and a group of faculty, and they were all men, who were faculty in my department, got into the elevator, and they asked for whose secretary I was. And I replied that I was a student in the PhD program, and they laughed. It just seemed inconceivable to them. I was the only woman in my program. And then, when I was looking at orthopedics, that was a little bit more of a male-dominated field at the time. And we had faculty on staff that were interested in orthopedics. But then as I began to look more at wounds, I really started to build more of an interdisciplinary team. And I work with physicians now, trauma surgeons, pathologists, nurses, physical therapists, bioinformaticists, and marine biologists. My ongoing projects are wound healing in sharks and skates, that's the marine biologist, burn scarring, that's the trauma surgeon, unavoidable versus avoidable pressure injuries, those are nurses and physicians, and then adipose tissue in etiology of deep tissue pressure injuries, and that's pathologists. I have found the field much more rewarding than traditional engineering. I have found working with an interdisciplinary team is a much more rewarding experience than I found traditional engineering. And I think, I think the field has changed a lot. I was talking to a young faculty member at my institution the other day, and she told me that she felt that, there's such an effort now to be inclusive in graduate programs that she almost felt it was tipping too far the other way. But my experience was not terribly inclusive and not terribly friendly. And I think, building your own community, frankly, around what you're interested in helps a lot and helps with, being more productive and having a better opportunity to do the research that you find impactful and meaningful. Thank you for the opportunity.
Another, we haven't received the video, then we'll move on to question and answers. For all of us, we heard the story and journey of wound care, and I'd like to ask panel, we can start from Hiski, that what was the most challenge that you had in this journey and you wish to resolve it for the next generation of wound healers?
You want Switzerland answer here?
The Switzerland answer, yes.
The biggest challenge for me was to get the medical doctor that's working with me to see me as an equal and not as the person that needs to receive the order list of the day and make sure that it's executed according to their wishes. To start to work in a team, and the biggest challenge for me is to get certain of the specialties to believe that wound care does not belong to one unit only. Just because I'm the wound care unit, I do not own that wound. I need all of the support around because I'm dealing with a whole patient. And that, up to today, is still a challenge for me.
Thanks a lot. Gurnath.
For me, biggest challenge is the time which are passing by, having so many of electronic medical records. We are neglecting patients, and that's my biggest challenge. We don't talk to the patient. We don't listen to the patient. We don't hear what is his concerns. So this is where I feel like it's a big challenge for all of us in this time of the world, that we're too busy in computing rather than talking.
Thanks. Helen.
Yeah, I think for me, as coming from a resource mismanaged country, it is our biggest challenge is resources. Be it in terms of healthcare professionals, we don't have enough of them. We don't have enough resource in terms of medication, equipment, space. So for the future, I would like governments changing their policy towards funding healthcare, because that's important.
Thanks. Mariana.
So, I will add things that have not been said before, and I think especially for women that have always challenges of balancing work and life. I think in academia the biggest challenge was always to recognize that and to adopt the rules and the tenure clocks and all of the career points that are being evaluated as a faculty. It's always very, very much work in progress to really adapt all of those rules and regulations and the way we are quantified and evaluated to kind of incorporate the challenges that women's journey takes and taking that into account.
Thank you. And I think in all the stories we heard how mentorship changed the life or journey of many of us. And it would be good that World Union planned for a wound healing mentorship. And it doesn't need to be only women mentorship, but overall to support the new generation. We are at the end of the meeting, but I want to ask you another question, short answer. For the young females sitting here, listening to you at the beginning of their journey, and they are you years back, what advice do you have for them? Mariana, we'll start from you.
I thought I already said it. When somebody tells you it's not possible, you have two choices, to listen or to prove them wrong. And I think, we know what the right answer is, and I think that the greatest part is that we are kind of through the parts of evolution, and I think the times have changed quite a bit since I started, and they're continue to change and be part of that change.
Thank you. Helen.
I think my advice is you have to step up, you have to want it, and because nobody's going to hand it over to you, it's not easy, so you have to challenge yourself. You would not know what you are capable of doing until you do it. So you have to challenge yourselves, you have to put yourselves out there to achieve.
Thank you. Gurnath.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. For me, I think we need to focus on prevention and education. This is what COVID has taught us, to educate the carers, the families, the patient, and then focus on prevention. And pandemic of diabetic foot ulcer is really coming alarming, so we need to really do something. I mean, you can get reimbursement when you do the amputation, but you don't get any reimbursement when you save the limb. So that practice has to change. If we have saved the limb, we should be reimbursed rather than cutting the limbs and then you reimburse.
Iski, and you have the last word.
I am privileged. I want you all to say the sentence that I'm going to say now. If it is to be, it is up to me. 1, 2, 3. If it is to be, it is up to me. If something does not exist and you know it's a limitation in the evidence base, do that research. If you have a dream that needs to happen, you need to take that step towards that dream. If it is to be, it is up to me.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all of you for supporting.
Ahora se haciendo que te mueve. Yo no